I'm often asked, what is a discovery call? So on this video today, I want to look at two major things. Obviously, what is a discovery call? But I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you're likely learning about sales and or preparing for an interview where they may be asking you to run a discovery call and you have no idea what to do. So we'll take a look at what it is conceptually, but also what it means to actually do and how you can run a discovery call, whether it's in an interview or actually as you're getting started as an SDR for the first time. Now, as the name implies, a discovery call is where we're discovering a lot of our prospects' situation, environment, and pains associated with why they might be looking for a solution in the first place. So usually the term discovery call is after you've already called someone, maybe a cold call or an email, you've set up an initial call to actually run through their environment and their challenges further. And it's on you now to guide the call, not only to uncover their pain, but ideally you can find some pain that you can associate to the values of the product that you're selling. What I think is often lost in preparing for a discovery call is simply leading the call to a logical conclusion and next step. Which is equally important to actually knowing the values of the product you're selling itself. So like as an example, I've worked at database companies in the past, so let's use that as an example. If someone is calling me and they're looking to upgrade their current database or they have limitations with their current database, and they've agreed to do this longer form call, a discovery call is where, as the name implies, again, we're starting the call asking all about them. So tell us more about what you're doing, tell us about the limitations you're experiencing. And only at that point, if you discover some things that are relevant to what you're selling, you start to bring them to that point. And so as an example, let's say you're in an interview. One of the things that a lot of candidates miss on, whether it's super rigid and structured or at a minimum an agenda is set, setting the tone for the meeting, having an agenda of, even as an example, in a 30-minute call. Hey, the first 10 minutes, what I'd really love to do is better understand what you're doing today, some of the pains that you mentioned in terms of whether it's the ability to scale, whatever it might be. As we transition to the second half of the call, what I'd love to do is, if it's a fit for what we do, kind of talk about how your problems map onto our solution. And then for the last part of the call, I'd love to open it up to more informal questions. That being said, feel free to ask questions along the way. These are the kinds of things you can do to set up the structure of the call, let the prospect know that you're not wasting their time and you have a clear idea, and also are open-ended to, I'm not here to sell you, I'm here to see if this is a problem that we can solve. So again, it's going to be difficult depending on the company you're interviewing. I'm not going to be able to tell you in this video the exact types of questions you can ask, but this as an example is how a discovery call might go. So let's use the case of a database example. Someone, maybe they're running a new social media network and they found product fit, so they're getting new users like crazy. All this extra data they now need to track, and their current database doesn't have the ability to store and act as they need. So the temptation is to say, hey, I'm selling this scalable database, but that's completely besides the point. Like, hey, would love to know more about what you're doing. So for instance, I noticed a few things that you said. One, you found product market fit and you're getting tons of new users and tons of new data. So what was it before you found product market fit? And how much more data do you have now? How much more activity do you have on the database right now? That's an example of a great question to start. And when they give you answers, you can probe in further. Oh, like, hey, I noticed you said you 3x'd your traffic. What is the impact to the end user? Is the database itself now running too slow? Is the end user actually seeing a slow or like dead website when they're trying to log into the platform? And so you can keep pulling that thread, get the prospect talking. And again, this is maybe beyond the scope of an interview, but as you learn your product, things you can do are asking trap type of questions. So you can ask a question to ideally uncover a pain, and you know ahead of time that that pain they might have maps directly to a solution or value of the product that you're selling. So like as an example, start high level, focus on maybe the before and after, like, hey, you're ramping up like crazy, tell me about the new users, tell me all about you, keep that focus there. As you get better context, you can start to drill on more specific questions that are subconsciously positioning your product to be a great fit for what they're doing. So like I mentioned, maybe they're growing their deployment, they've tripled the size of their website in a month. What does that look like long-term, etc.? Those are the higher level questions. Now we can break it down further. If your database, as an example, can scale rapidly or automatically based on traffic, maybe that's a question you can ask about your current database. Like, one, does your current database have the ability to scale to that size? And maybe they say yes, but it's going to be very painful. It's just another Band-Aid. It's not the long-term solution. And then you can ask further, like as an example, if there was a perfect solution for you, would there be any features that you're looking for that you don't have now, say like instant scaling or workload-based work adjustments? I don't want to get too specific here and off track. But again, you kind of start at this high level. You ask him all about just more the questions, the end user experience, the impact to the business themselves. Have you ever had a time where this went down and you lost users that directly tied to like a loss in revenue? Or have you ever had to get a call at 2 a.m. because the entire system's down and now you have to work on it because it's your responsibility? These are the types of things you can start at. Now we kind of narrow that funnel as we get further into the questioning, and we're trying to pull out pains that are directly associated with the value of our product without saying, hey, our product can do this, you should use it. It's the opposite. It's, hey, I noticed one of the things that I hear a lot, that people who maybe are using this type of database, they don't have automatic scaling, or they don't have something of this nature. I guess, have you thought about what the perfect solution might look like? It sounds like you're looking at a couple different databases. Are there specific features based on your own experience that are absolute must for you going forward if you are going to move off of your current database? And again, it's really hard to get super specific. Obviously, the questions I'm gonna ask are gonna be even more pointed than that when it comes to the actual product that I'm selling on a day-to-day basis. But again, just keeping that framework, starting super wide, not specific to any solution. Now we start to narrow it down on the database tech, start to better understand what they know about the broader tech landscape in terms of the database solutions they might be looking at. And then at the bottom of the funnel, before we start getting to our exact questions and starting to talk about our product, then we get really, really pointed. Maybe it's asking, can you tie a direct number of how much revenue you lost, or what is the impact if this is not solved next month? You just 3x'd your growth in a single month. What if that goes to 9x this month? Are you ready to handle that? And if not, is that a severe impact, as an example, if you can't keep adding users or whatever it may be? And we're really trying to bring that pain to the forefront while doing so respectfully, I might add. But then, and only then, what we're going to do is transition to some higher level values of the product. So again, in an interview setting, no one's going to be expecting you to be the foremost expert on the product. But that being said, ideally you've done some research, you know that maybe scale is a huge advantage. I don't know, there's tons of different things that could be of value, but you can take that and as an example say, well, hey, one of the things I want to talk about as we kind of look a little bit more about what we can do, but I did just want to start out and mention, for one thing, you mentioned the 3x growth last month, and it could go even higher this month. One of the things that we do very well is scaling based on the growth in workload. So I know, at least right out of the gate, that might be something that would be appealing, and then insert value prop, insert more information about that feature, and make it a very approachable, digestible piece of information. Ideally, maybe you do that 1 or 2 more times where, hey, I know you mentioned cost is a concern. One of the things we notice with users of the database you're currently on, when they switch over to us, because we have these auto scaling capabilities, they actually save on cost because they're only using what's absolutely necessary at any given time. And again, I don't want to get too specific down the rabbit hole here, but just restating and kind of summarizing for the sake of this video. 1, a discovery call is learning more about the prospect's pain, learning more about their situation, their environment, their long-term goals, and the impact of what they're doing from a financial and business perspective. And only once we know that information, then talking further about our own products and talking about how it can help. Lastly, again, if you're in an interview setting, it doesn't have to be super formal and boring, but even just starting with a high-level, loose agenda of saying, hey, the first half of this call, I'd really love to focus on your environment, learn more about the reason we're talking today and some of the pains and challenges you're experiencing. And then on the second half of the call, as it makes sense, I'd love to show a little bit about how we can help on some of the most important things on your end. And then if it's a great fit from there, we can set up another call with our engineering team to explore further, see if it's a great fit, and maybe actually get to the point where we're scoping out a potential POV or minimum viable product with our solution. So I hope that helps. Definitely ask me questions below if there's things I can get more specific on. It's very difficult to do when I'm making a broad video for people who may be selling all sorts of stuff. And lastly, I'd add we are working towards a full course where we're actually going to have real life scenarios working with products that we've worked with in the past, and or even example calls with managers that we're going to interview, etc. So stay tuned. Really appreciate everyone for supporting the channel, and we will see you next week. Thanks.